This was an idea that was suggested in some of our meetings that we had with Irma to find a way to make our two ERC projects, the TRICI-Law and the GlobeTax projects, find some common grounds to cooperate. And we came up with a series of workshops, one, the one that we're here today, and the other one together with Diego as well in The Hague for the Belt Road Initiative. So a series of workshops where surprisingly we managed to find ways in which customary international law, tax and investment law find ways in which their paths cross each other. I know you didn't come here to hear me speak, so I'll very briefly say a few things about the TRICI-Law project. Then Adrian will speak in the voice of Irma to introduce, because Irma is en route, as she told me. She had a previous commitment which made it impossible for her to be here. For the time being, she'll be here for the second panel, who will introduce the main aspects of the GlobeTax Gov ERC project. And then, of course, we'll open truly the workshop for the first panel, where our speakers will enlighten us about the interpretation of customary international law in the context of investment law. And I'm really, really looking forward to both panels, and thanks to all the speakers and the chairs for helping us out with that. I also forgot, and I'm being on recorded at this moment, so I should rectify this, to thank the ERC, because that is something that I have to do as well, for funding this project. We have to thank them, and as you can see, the logos are there. So very quickly, in order not to waste any time, please can I borrow quickly? Thank you very much. So what the TRICI-Law project is all about. I need this. Thank you. So the TRICI-Law project is essentially the acronym for the Rules of Interpretation of Customary International Law. And that's how we pronounce it, TRICI, not TRICI-Law, because it is a tricky area of law. That's what we were going for. So this is funded by the ERC, it is headed by myself, and of course in the team at the moment we have two PhD researchers, Ms. Nina Mileva and Ms. Marina Fortuna, who are also responsible for a number of work packages. The objective is to determine the existence and the content of the rules of interpretation of customary international law. And the idea is that whereas for treaties, we kind of have a set of rules that are enshrined in the Vienna Convention of the Law of Treaties. What are you looking into? You look at the text, the object and purpose, the intention of the parties, other elements. With respect to customary international law, we have not had such a discussion. So the image that we have is that we basically consider that customary international law merges through state practice and opinio juris, and that's usually where the discussion kind of ends. What we are questioning is that this does not give a full picture. We think that once the rule has emerged, during its continued application, we have a process that is very similar to the process of interpretation of treaties, that customary international law, once it has been formed, also undergoes an interpretative process. And we want to examine what are the rules that regulate this particular kind of process. So essentially the TRICI-Law project consists of 4 work plans. One is the theory, to examine whether from a theoretical perspective, and also gain a little bit of insight from domestic legal systems, whether this discussion has happened in domestic legal systems. Work package 2 will examine whether in international courts and tribunals in different areas, hence the idea of this workshop, investment law and tax law, we have had instances where customary international law has been applied but also interpreted. Work package 3 will try and compare the rules of interpretation of customary international law with rules of interpretation of treaties, of unilateral acts, and see whether there are similarities, differences, and also whether they have changed through time. And finally, as in every project, there is a synthesis one, which will try to make sense of the findings of all different work packages and try and see if we can boil all our findings down to some critical issues. So this is the team, the two PhDs, also Ms. Tatiana Spike-Belanova, who's our project manager, and without whose help this would not have been possible. We would be most likely at a coffee shop drinking coffee. And of course, once again, VRC for making it possible to fund this project and these workshops. So that's very briefly a small introduction about the TRICI-Law project. Thank you for your attention, and I will now yield the floor to Adrian, who will continue with the Globe Tax Gov